To put her to the test, a millionaire pretended to be a man in a wheelchair on a blind date. What happened next left him speechless. Alejandro never thought his heart could race like this over a simple lie. But there he was, sitting in a rented wheelchair in the corner of a fancy cafe on Gran Via, Madrid. The clinking of silverware, the rich smell of roasted coffee, and the constant flow of tourists created the perfect backdrop. Or almost. His eyes stayed glued to the entrance, sweaty palms, restless legs, even though at that moment he was pretending they didn't work. Across the city, Laura took a deep breath before walking in. Simple dress, hair pulled back at the last minute, makeup done in the metro station mirror. She had no idea who was waiting for her inside. For her, this was just another blind date, one she'd laugh about later with her friends. When her eyes finally met his, Alejandro felt a lump in his throat. The way she smiled, half shy, half curious, completely disarmed him. She walked over with light steps and sat across from him, adjusting her bag on her lap like she needed it as a shield. The conversation started off light. Books, travel, dreams. Alejandro, even though he was focused on testing her, found himself genuinely laughing at her stories about the kids at the public school where she taught. She spoke with passion, with that special sparkle in her eyes. But there was something else. Something he couldn't quite figure out. Quick glances at her phone, hands that shook slightly when she picked up her glass of water. A hesitation every time he complimented her. Then suddenly, just as Laura was telling him about a volunteer project she did on weekends, Alejandro's phone buzzed. A short message, but enough to drain the color from his face. Urgent. Need to speak with you now. About the Lisbon deal. It's serious. His blood ran cold. His hands trembled. For a second, the whole world around him slowed down like a bad movie effect. He looked at Laura, who at that moment politely excused herself to go to the bathroom. Alejandro was left alone, staring at his phone screen. 1,000 thoughts at once. Keep the lie going? Tell her the truth? What if she found out before he could say anything? When Laura came back, the light smile she carried vanished as soon as she saw his face. She stopped next to the table, staring straight into his eyes. Alejandro opened his mouth to speak, but what was he going to say? Hey, before we dive back into this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. A lot of subscribers have been reporting that YouTube has unsubscribed them without any warning. Take a quick second to check the red button down below and make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss out on any of the exclusive content coming your way, and since you're here, go ahead and smash that like button. It helps me a ton with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, from which city are you watching this video? I love getting to know every incredible person who's part of this community. Your support makes all the difference. Let's interact. Alejandro's mouth opened, but no sound came out. His throat tightened like someone had wrapped a rope around it. Laura stood there, staring at him with a mix of concern and suspicion. The cafe noise around them felt distant, muffled, like he was underwater. Finally, he managed to say, Laura, there's something I need to tell you. But before he could continue, a loud crash interrupted them. A waiter had dropped a tray full of glasses. The whole cafe turned toward the noise. Some people gasped, others laughed nervously. Laura used that distraction to sit back down, but her eyes never left Alejandro's. You're scaring me, she said, voice low but steady. What's going on? Alejandro wiped the sweat from his forehead. This wasn't supposed to happen like this, he stammered. I'm not, this wheelchair. Laura's eyes widened. For a split second, Alejandro saw pure shock. But then something unexpected happened. Her expression shifted from surprise to something else, something heavier. Her face lost color. She pressed her lips together and turned her gaze to the floor. Before Alejandro could explain further, Laura suddenly stood up. Wait here, she whispered, almost like a command. Without another word, she walked out of the cafe, pushing the door open with more force than necessary. Alejandro froze. A few people from nearby tables looked at him, whispering. He felt the weight of their stares burning into his back. Minutes felt like hours. Should he follow her? Should he stay? 5 long minutes later, Laura came back. Her face was pale, her eyes red like she'd just been crying. She sat down, took a deep breath, and without looking at him said, "You're not the only one hiding something." Alejandro blinked. "What do you mean?" Laura pulled out her phone, opened the gallery, and turned the screen toward him. It was a photo of her, in a hospital room, wearing a patient's gown with a shaved head, tubes attached to her arm. Alejandro's heart dropped. "I had cancer," she said, voice trembling but fierce. "For 2 years. Chemotherapy. Radiation. I survived. And I told myself, never again would I waste time with people who play games with me." Alejandro couldn't breathe for a second. His fake wheelchair. Her real battle for life. The contrast hit him like a punch in the stomach. Silence stretched between them. The air felt heavy, charged with things unsaid. Alejandro's phone buzzed again. Another message about the Lisbon deal. But now, none of that mattered. Laura finally looked at him, her eyes still wet, but her gaze sharper than ever. "So, your turn," she said, crossing her arms. "What's the truth, Alejandro?" Alejandro opened his mouth, but again, no words came out. Alejandro swallowed hard. His throat burned. His mind was spinning like a washing machine on high speed. Laura's eyes were fixed on him, demanding the truth. He opened his mouth again, but his voice came out hoarse. "I'm not paralyzed," he finally said. "This wheelchair, it's a lie. I rented it. I wanted to know if you were here for me, or for something else." Laura blinked, slow and heavy, like each word he said took longer to sink in. Her jaw clenched. For a moment she didn't say anything. The air between them felt sharp, like broken glass. "I don't even know what to say to that," she whispered, looking away. Her fingers trembled as she reached for her bag, pulling out a tissue to wipe her eyes. The room felt smaller. The voices of other customers grew louder in Alejandro's ears. Snippets of conversations, chairs scraping the floor, coffee cups clinking. He could feel people glancing at their table. More whispers, more judgment. "I didn't want to hurt you," he said quickly. "I swear, Laura, it was stupid. I've been with people before who only cared about money, about what I have." "I thought this was the only way to be sure," Laura laughed. A bitter, short laugh that died as fast as it came. "You wanted honesty, so you gave me a lie?" She shook her head. "Do you have any idea how that feels, after what I've been through?" Alejandro's stomach twisted. I know I messed up. But I swear, this, right now, this is real." Before either of them could say more, a tall man in a black suit walked into the cafe. He moved fast, scanning the room like he was looking for someone. His eyes locked on Alejandro. "Alejandro," the man called out, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "We need you. Now. There's been a problem at the Lisbon site. Security breach. It's serious." Laura's head snapped toward the man. Her expression shifted, confusion mixed with curiosity and a trace of fear. Alejandro froze. His heart started pounding again. "Not now. Not here. I can't. I'm in the middle of something," he muttered, barely able to speak. The man didn't back off. "You don't understand. It's bad. Real bad." Alejandro's phone lit up on the table. Multiple missed calls, multiple messages, the name of his head of security flashing again and again. Laura stared at the screen, then back at him. "Alejandro, what exactly do you do for a living?" she asked slowly, her tone changing. The tension in the room doubled. Alejandro's mouth went dry. He opened his mouth to answer, but at that exact moment the cafe door slammed open again. This time 2 men in dark coats entered, talking rapidly into earpieces, eyes sweeping the room like they were searching for something, or someone. Laura's eyes widened. She pushed her chair back slightly, her breathing quick and shallow. Alejandro stood up from the wheelchair, without thinking. And in that instant, Laura gasped, loud enough for half the cafe to turn toward them. The room froze. Alejandro stood there, exposed, No chair, no lie to hide behind. The entire cafe seemed to hold its breath. Even the clinking of cups stopped. Laura's hands covered her mouth, her eyes wide, not just from shock, but something deeper: betrayal, confusion, hurt. One of the men with the earpiece stepped forward, talking low and fast in Alejandro's ear. "Sir, it's worse than we thought. The Lisbon servers, they've been breached. Sensitive files, names, accounts." Alejandro's stomach flipped. Not now, not here. He raised a shaky hand, signaling the man to step back. "Give me 5 minutes," he whispered. Turning back to Laura, he tried to speak, but her chair scraped loudly against the floor as she stood up. "You lied about who you are," she said, voice trembling. "You lied about everything." "I didn't lie about everything," Alejandro shot back, louder than he intended. People stared again. A woman at the next table gasped. A couple near the door exchanged whispers. Laura's eyes narrowed. "Then tell me right now, who the hell are you?" Alejandro's pulse thundered in his ears. "I own several companies, construction, tech, imports, but that's not what matters now." She laughed, bitter and short. "It does matter, because I just realized. I Googled you once, weeks ago, but the name didn't ring any bells. You booked this date under a fake last name, didn't you?" Alejandro froze. Laura's hand shook as she grabbed her phone. "And you know what's funny?" she continued, voice rising. "While you were pretending to be someone else, I was doing the exact same thing." Alejandro blinked. "What?" She opened her phone gallery again and showed him another photo. This time it wasn't of her in the hospital. It was her standing next to a man in a police uniform, holding a badge. "My brother," she said. "Detective. And guess what? Last night he showed me your name on an internal report. Something about offshore accounts. Potential fraud investigations." Alejandro's stomach twisted like a knot. The color drained from his face. That's not what it sounds like." Laura didn't flinch. "Isn't it?" The air between them thickened. Alejandro opened his mouth, but a loud commotion at the door cut him off. More security. 2 more men this time. One shouted Alejandro's name. Laura grabbed her bag and stood, her breathing shallow. "I'm done here," she said, her voice cracking. Alejandro took a step toward her, reaching out. "Wait, Laura, please." But she was already heading toward the door. As she pushed past the crowd, Alejandro's phone buzzed again. This time, a new number. Unknown. One word in the message. "Run." Alejandro's throat closed. He looked up. But Laura was already gone. Alejandro stood frozen, staring at the word on his screen. "Run." His heart pounded against his ribs, loud and violent like a warning siren inside his chest. For a second, all he could hear was the rush of blood in his ears. The voices, the clatter of cups, even the guards shouting his name. All of it blurred. He shoved the phone deep into his jacket pocket, trying to steady his breathing. The 2 men with earpieces moved closer, one of them grabbing Alejandro's arm. But he pulled away fast, almost knocking over a chair. "Not here!" Alejandro hissed. "Not now!" He scanned the room, hoping to catch a glimpse of Laura, but she was already gone, vanished into the crowd outside. The air outside the cafe was cooler, sharper, but no less chaotic. People walked fast along Gran Via, rushing like they always did. Tourists, street performers, vendors shouting for attention. Alejandro pushed through them, ignoring the voices calling his name behind him. "Laura!" he yelled, spinning around at every woman with dark hair and a shoulder bag. Nothing. No sign of her. Then, a block away, he saw her, leaning against a bus stop pole, head down, shoulders shaking, crying. Alejandro rushed toward her, but halfway there, a black SUV screeched to a stop right in front of him. Doors opened. 3 men jumped out, suits and all, their faces tense. "Sir, we're taking you now. It's not safe," one of them barked. Alejandro pushed past them. "I said 5 minutes." His voice cracked from the force. One of the men grabbed his shoulder, tighter this time. Alejandro swung around, his fist connecting with the guy's jaw. The man stumbled back, stunned. Heads turned. Pedestrians froze. Someone pulled out their phone to film. Alejandro didn't care. He reached Laura just as she lifted her head. Her eyes, red and tired, met his with a look that cut him deeper than any punch. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't say anything. Laura, please." His voice broke. "I never wanted this to happen. Not like this." She wiped her face with the sleeve of her jacket. "You think you're the only one who's tired of people lying? You think your games are unique? I've been lied to by doctors, by friends, by men who ran the moment I got sick. I survived all of that. But this?" Her voice shook. "This feels worse." Alejandro opened his mouth to answer, but her phone buzzed. She pulled it from her bag, glanced at the screen, and froze. Her lips parted. The color drained from her face again. Alejandro watched her expression change from anger to fear. "What is it?" he asked, stepping closer. She swallowed hard. "It's my brother," she whispered. "He just sent me a single text." Alejandro's stomach dropped. "What does it say?" Laura turned the screen toward him. One word glowed on the screen. "Leave." Before Alejandro could react, the SUV's engine roared behind them. Tires screeched. A car door slammed. And from somewhere down the street, Alejandro heard someone yell his name. Loud, urgent, panicked. Alejandro's breath caught in his throat. The voice calling his name came from the other side of the street. Fast, urgent. He turned his head and saw Javier, his oldest friend and, until recently, his most trusted business partner, waving both arms like a man trying to stop a train. "Get in the car, now!" Javier shouted, his voice cracking. Alejandro took a step forward, but Laura's hand suddenly grabbed his wrist. Tight, desperate. "Don't go," she whispered, her eyes full of fear and something else. Something raw. "Not until you tell me what's really happening." For a split second, Alejandro froze between two worlds. The one where his security team dragged him into that SUV, away from trouble, and the one where Laura stood trembling in front of him, demanding the truth. The SUV door slammed open. One of the men lunged for him, but Alejandro jerked his arm free and stumbled backward, almost knocking Laura over. "I'm not leaving you like this," he said, voice shaking. "Not again." Laura's breath hitched. Her grip on his wrist loosened, but she didn't let go completely. Javier reached them, panting. "Alejandro, this isn't a joke anymore. Lisbon's not the only problem. They froze the accounts in Zurich. The board knows. The press knows. There's a leak." Alejandro's stomach dropped. His skin went cold. The knot in his throat tightened. Laura's face went pale. "Zurich? Leak? What does that mean?" Alejandro dragged a hand down his face. "It means I'm running out of time," he muttered. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police, getting closer. Javier grabbed his shoulder, almost begging now. "We have to go, right now." Alejandro's eyes locked with Laura's. Her tears had dried, but her gaze was still wet with disappointment. And something worse. Doubt. "Please," he said to her, almost a whisper. "Come with me, just for now. Just until I can explain." Laura shook her head, took a step back. "I can't, not like this." A crackle sounded from one of the security men's radios. "Confirmed. 2 patrol units approaching from the south entrance." The tension snapped. Alejandro turned to Javier. "Take them around back. I'll meet you at the second location." Javier cursed under his breath but nodded. Alejandro turned back to Laura one last time. "I'll find you," he said, voice low, shaking but certain. She didn't answer. Without waiting another second, Alejandro bolted down a side alley, ignoring the voices calling after him, ignoring the SUV, ignoring everything. Behind him, Laura stood frozen on the sidewalk, watching the man who had just turned her world upside down disappear into the crowd. Her phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from an unknown number. 3 words. "He's not safe." Her heart stopped. Laura's hands trembled as she stared at the screen. 3 words. Simple, direct. But they hit her like a punch to the chest. He's not safe. Her breathing became shallow. She looked up, eyes scanning the crowd, searching for Alejandro. But he was already gone. The alley where he had disappeared moments ago now looked like a dark, endless tunnel. Her heart pounded in her ears. She bit her lip hard enough to taste blood. Suddenly, her phone rang. Unknown number again. Her thumb hovered over the answer button. For a split second, she considered ignoring it. But something inside her screamed, "Pick up." "Hello?" Her voice cracked. "Laura." It was her brother's voice, fast, pressured. "Where are you? Are you still near him?" She froze. "What's going on? What do you mean he's not safe? Who's after him?" "I can't explain on the phone," he snapped. "Just listen to me for once. Go home, lock your doors, turn off your phone. Whatever you do, stay away from him, for your own sake." Her stomach twisted. "You don't understand. I can't just walk away from this." The line went dead. Laura stood there, frozen in the middle of the sidewalk, people brushing past her like she was invisible. The city moved on, but her world stood still. A cold breeze hit her face. A bus passed by, blasting noise and exhaust, making her cough. Her legs felt like they were filled with cement. But still, she moved, one step at a time toward the alley. She didn't care about her brother's warnings. Not now. Not after everything. Reaching the corner, she slowed down, pressing her back against the wall like she'd seen in police movies. She peeked inside. The alley was empty. Wet asphalt. Overflowing garbage bins. A cat jumped from a dumpster, startling her. Then, a noise. Something metallic, behind one of the bins. "Who's there?" she asked, barely above a whisper. No answer. Laura's pulse spiked. Against every instinct screaming at her to run, she stepped forward, slowly, carefully, and then she saw him. Alejandro, crouched, back against the wall, head between his knees, hands shaking, breathing like someone who had just outrun death. His jacket was ripped at the shoulder. There was a thin cut above his eyebrow, fresh blood dripping near his eye. Laura's heart broke a little at the sight. She didn't say a word, just walked over, knelt beside him, and touched his arm gently. He flinched at first, then looked up. Their eyes met. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered. Alejandro's voice came out rough, barely audible. "Neither should I." Before either of them could say more, Laura's phone buzzed again. This time, a new message. No name, just coordinates. A location pin, 2 blocks from where she stood, and a single line of text underneath. "If you want answers, come alone." Laura's fingers hovered over the screen, her throat tightening. The location pin blinked at her, like a silent countdown she didn't fully understand. 2 blocks away. Alejandro noticed. "What's that?" he asked, wiping the blood from above his eye with the sleeve of his shirt. His voice was hoarse, barely holding together. "Coordinates," she muttered. "Someone wants me to go there. Alone." His body stiffened. "Who sent it?" She shook her head. No name, just like before. Alejandro cursed under his breath. For a second, he pressed his palm against the wall, as if needing something solid to keep him upright. "Then we're going together." Laura grabbed his wrist, stopping him. "No, if they said alone, it's for a reason." "Laura, listen to me." "No." Her voice cracked. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she blinked them back. "I've spent 2 years letting fear control every second of my life. Sitting in hospital beds, waiting for doctors, letting people decide for me. Not this time." Alejandro opened his mouth to argue, but stopped. There was something in her tone, something final. Without another word, Laura stood, dusting off her knees, and started walking toward the main street. Alejandro pushed himself up, still shaky, but determined not to lose sight of her. He followed at a distance, weaving through the crowd like a shadow. Laura's heart beat faster with every step. The closer she got to the coordinates, the more the noise of the city seemed to fade. The music from a nearby street performer, the chatter from outdoor cafes. It all became background static. Finally, she stopped in front of a small, abandoned newsstand at the corner of a side street. Rusted metal shutters, graffiti on the walls. Her phone buzzed again. "Step inside." Her breath caught. She pushed on the half-jammed door and slipped into the dark, narrow space. The smell of old paper and damp metal filled her nose. A voice came from the shadows, deep, calm, familiar. Close the door behind you. Laura's heart jumped to her throat. Slowly, she turned. Her brother stood there, but something was wrong. His eyes, colder than she'd ever seen. No badge, no uniform, just plain clothes and a tension in his jaw that made her skin crawl. Why? Why are you here? She asked, her voice shaking. He stepped closer. You weren't supposed to get involved, Laura. She took a step back, her pulse racing. Involved in what? Her brother exhaled hard, running a hand through his hair like he was debating something big. You don't know who Alejandro really is, he said, voice low. And you definitely don't know what he's done. Laura's stomach dropped. Before she could ask more, her phone buzzed again. Another message. This time, from Alejandro. Just 3 words. Don't trust him. Laura felt her stomach twist. Her fingers trembled as she shoved the phone deep into her jacket pocket, like the message could burn her skin if she held it any longer. Her brother took a step closer. Laura, look at me. I'm trying to protect you. His voice was low, almost rehearsed. It wasn't like him. Not like this. She crossed her arms tight against her chest, as if that could hold back the panic already rising. Protect me from what? From Alejandro? Or from you? He frowned, took a deep breath, but before he could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed from outside. Both of them turned at the same time. Laura pressed her back against the wall, her chest rising and falling too fast. Her brother checked his watch, nervous. Listen, you're leaving here now. Go straight to Mom's place. Turn off your phone. There are people coming after him, Laura. People who don't care about innocent bystanders. She shook her head. No, I'm not going anywhere until you tell me the truth. All of it. No more games. He ran a hand over his neck, frustrated. Do you have any idea how many times I've had to cover for you without you knowing? You think this offshore account stuff, this fraud investigation, is just about money? It's not. It's about national security, Laura. This is bigger than me, bigger than you, bigger than him. Laura swallowed hard. A stubborn tear slipped down her cheek, but she wiped it away fast. Then explain this. She pulled out her phone and showed him Alejandro's message. Don't trust him. For a split second, her brother's face lost color. Quick, barely noticeable. But she caught it. Before he could say a word, the sharp scrape of metal echoed from outside the newsstand door. Both their heads snapped toward the sound. Her brother crouched low, peeking through the crack in the door. Then Javier's voice cut through the street noise. Laura, if you're in there, come out. He's coming. Her brother grabbed her arm, tight, almost painful. Don't listen to him. He's with Alejandro. They're both neck deep in this mess. Laura's eyes darted between the door and her brother's face. Memories crashed in her head. Old promises, childhood trust, and now, this. Suddenly, a single gunshot rang out, loud, sharp, echoing down the street. Laura froze. Her brother cursed under his breath, pulling her down to the floor. Stay down! But she didn't listen. On instinct, she ran to the door and threw it open. Outside, on the sidewalk, Javier was on his knees, hands pressed to his shirt, trying to stop the blood pouring from his chest. And just a few feet away, Alejandro stood there, frozen, eyes wide in shock, empty hands shaking at his sides, like the ground had just vanished beneath him. Laura opened her mouth to scream, but the name she shouted wasn't Alejandro's. It was her brother's. Laura's scream was still hanging in the air when her brother lowered the gun, like reality crashing down on him all at once. His hand shook, his eyes widened, like he hadn't fully processed what he'd just done. Javier lay gasping on the ground, both hands pressed tight against his chest, blood spreading fast through his fingers. People on the sidewalk froze, some recording on their phones, others just staring in horrified silence. A guy from a nearby shop yelled for someone to call an ambulance. Laura's breath came in short, broken bursts. Her legs felt like they were about to give out. She dropped to her knees next to Javier, pressing her own hands over the wound without thinking. "Stay with me. Stay with me, please." Javier tried to speak, but only blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth. Alejandro stood a few steps back, frozen, face pale, eyes locked on Laura's brother like he'd just seen a ghost. Then, suddenly, like something snapped inside him, he rushed over. "Move!" Alejandro shouted, yanking off his jacket and pressing it hard against Javier's chest. Laura's brother didn't stop him. He just stood there, gun lowered, staring at his own hands like he didn't even recognize them anymore. For a few long seconds, nobody moved, just Laura crying. Alejandro yelling at Javier to keep his eyes open. The thick, metallic smell of blood in the air. Then sirens, loud, closer. Alejandro's head snapped up. Pure panic hit his face. "I can't be here when they show up," he muttered, breathing hard, almost panting. Laura grabbed his arm, nails digging into his skin. "You're not going anywhere!" He turned to her, chest heaving like he'd just run 10 miles. "If they catch me here, I won't get another shot at fixing this." "Fix what?" she shouted, her voice cracking, tears burning her face. Alejandro leaned in close, voice low and fast. "Zurich wasn't an accident. Lisbon wasn't an accident. Someone set me up. And your brother? He's not telling you everything." Before she could answer, Alejandro stood, turned to her brother, and for the first time, said it loud and clear, no hesitation. "You're the leak." Her brother froze, jaw clenched. Not a word, not even a blink. Alejandro turned back to Laura, eyes full of something between regret and desperation. "Believe whatever you want, but check his apartment, under the floorboards, by the old heater." And with that, Alejandro took off, disappearing into the alley without looking back. Laura sat there, hands covered in Javier's blood, heart pounding so hard she could barely hear. Her brother didn't move, just stood there, silent, staring at the spot where Alejandro had been seconds ago. The ambulance rounded the corner, lights flashing. And Laura, with shaking hands and 1,000 questions, couldn't stop staring at her brother. Because deep down, something in his eyes had already answered her. The ambulance doors slammed shut, and Laura stood there, breathless, her hands still stained with Javier's blood. Sirens howled, swallowing her thoughts, but her eyes stayed fixed on one thing: her brother, sitting inside, silent, expression blank, not a single word to her. Neighbors and strangers crowded the sidewalk, phones up, recording, whispering. Laura could feel their stares like knives in her skin. Then she noticed Alejandro was gone. Her stomach tightened. She turned, scanning the street, but there was no sign of him. Just the city moving like nothing had happened. Cars honking, people rushing past, life carrying on, as if her world hadn't just split in half. Her phone buzzed again, this time, just one sentence. "Did you check the floorboards?" Her heart jumped. Alejandro. Without thinking, Laura flagged down a cab. San Lorenzo Street. Fast. The ride felt endless. Her hands shook in her lap. She kept replaying the last few minutes in her head. Javier's face when Alejandro said those words. That tiny flicker in his eyes. That crack in his voice when he told her to go home. The cab screeched to a stop. Laura bolted out, ran up the stairs of her brother's building 2 at a time. Fumbled with the spare key she still had from years ago. Inside, silence, the smell of old coffee and dust. She walked straight to the living room, pushing furniture aside until she reached the old heater in the corner. The same one that never worked right in the winter. Her heart pounded in her throat. "This is crazy," she whispered to herself, dropping to her knees. Hands trembling, she pulled at the wooden boards. They creaked loud, each inch sounding like a scream in the silence. Then she saw it. A small metal lockbox. Cold, heavy. She hesitated for half a second before grabbing it and forcing it open with a fire poker from the fireplace. Inside, photos. Dozens. Surveillance shots. Alejandro at airports. At meetings, on the street. Close-up shots with dates scribbled in red ink and a USB drive. Her hands froze mid-air. Her stomach twisted so hard it hurt. Laura stared at the photos, then at the drive. Before she could process anything, her phone lit up again. Unknown number. This time, a voice message. With shaky fingers, she hit play. It was Alejandro, breathing fast, voice low. Laura, if you found the box, you're already in too deep. Don't trust anyone, not him, not even me. There's more going on than you think, and I don't have time to explain. Just be careful. They're watching both of us now. Her chest tightened. Her vision blurred. She stumbled back, almost knocking over the coffee table. And then, the front door rattled. Someone was unlocking it. Laura's hands shook so much she almost dropped the lockbox. The rattle of keys turning in the front door made her whole body freeze. Her heart felt like it was about to burst through her ribs. She grabbed the USB drive with trembling fingers and stuffed it into her jacket pocket. The photos, she left them scattered across the floor. The door swung open. Her brother, but not like before. His face, pale, almost gray. Dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in days. His clothes wrinkled, his breath short and uneven. Their eyes locked. For a second, neither of them moved. "What are you doing here?" His voice cracked halfway through the sentence. Laura stood, slow but firm, blocking the view of the lockbox behind her. "I could ask you the same." He glanced at the floor. His stare froze on the open boards, on the empty space where the box had been. His jaw clenched. "Laura, I need you to listen, very carefully." "No," she snapped, stepping back toward the door. "You listen. I want answers. Real ones. No more half-truths. No more secrets." He took a step toward her, hands raised like he was calming a wild animal. "Put the drive back, Laura." Her heart dropped. "You knew I'd find it," she whispered, voice shaking. He sighed, like the weight of a decade fell on his shoulders. "You weren't supposed to get involved like this." A bitter laugh escaped her lips. Too late. Before he could respond, both their phones buzzed at the same time. Laura glanced down. Another unknown number. One sentence. "Tell her the truth, or I will." Her brother read his message, eyes wide with panic. "Damn it," he muttered under his breath, pacing the room like a trapped animal. "Who is sending these?" she asked, stepping back toward the door. He didn't answer. Instead, he slammed both hands against the wall, breathing hard, almost growling with frustration. "Laura, you don't understand the mess you're in right now. I was trying to protect you, but if that drive's in the wrong hands, it won't just ruin Alejandro. It'll destroy you, me, everyone." Her stomach twisted. "Why me?" He froze. Dead silent. Her voice cracked as she pushed him. "Why me?" He lowered his head, ran both hands through his hair like he wanted to tear it out. Then, quietly, almost like it hurt him to say it, he whispered, "Because your name's on it too." Laura felt the room spin. Her legs gave out. She fell back against the wall, sliding down to the floor, her breath coming in short, shallow bursts. "No, that's not possible," she stammered. He knelt in front of her, gripping her shoulders tight. "Listen to me. This goes back years. Way before today. Before Alejandro, before Lisbon, before Zurich. I kept things from you to protect you. But now, it's too late for that." Tears blurred her vision. Her throat burned. "I never did anything," she whispered. His voice dropped even lower. "Sometimes, not doing something is enough." Suddenly glass shattered. A window. Both of them turned toward the hallway. Heavy footsteps, voices, multiple, coming fast. Her brother's face turned pale. "They found us." Laura's heart stopped. And then, she heard the front door slam open. Laura barely had time to react. The sound of the door crashing open echoed through the apartment like a gunshot. Two men came in first. Dark clothes, heavy steps, sharp eyes. The third took half a second longer to appear, but when he did, she recognized him instantly. Victor. The guy Laura had seen once, months ago, leaving a dinner with Alejandro. But now, there was no friendly smile on his face, just tension, a thin line of sweat running down his temple, fists clenched tight. Laura's brother stepped in front of her, arms stretched out like a shield. "Nobody touches her!" His tone wasn't a request, it was a warning. Victor didn't back down. "Then give me what she took." The other two started moving forward, but Laura's brother pulled his gun with a speed she'd never seen before. One more step and I shoot. Laura's heart was exploding inside her chest. Her legs shook so bad she thought they'd give out. The USB drive in her pocket felt like it weighed a ton. Victor raised both hands slowly, like he was trying to calm things down. "Breathe, detective. Nobody wants this to get worse than it already is. We just want the drive." Laura looked at her brother. For the first time, she saw real fear in his eyes. Not fear of losing a job. Real, raw fear. Like he knew he might not walk out of there alive. "Laura, give me the drive," he said, not looking at her, but with a voice tight with panic. "Why?" she barely managed to ask. "What's on it?" "Things you're better off not knowing," he answered, swallowing hard. Victor cut in, voice low, loaded. "Things that could put a lot of people at risk, including you, Laura." The air felt like thick cement. The only thing she could hear were her own shallow breathing, the pounding in her ears, and the soft creak of the floor under their feet. Without thinking, Laura took a small step back. Tiny, but enough. The weight in her pocket grew heavier by the second. Victor's gaze hardened. He gave a barely noticeable nod. And that's when everything exploded. One of the men lunged, too fast. Her brother fired. The gunshot ripped through the apartment. Glass shattered. The ceiling lights swung with the impact. Laura screamed before she even realized it. In the middle of the chaos, she ran. Barefoot, stumbling over her own steps, nearly falling. She bolted down the building stairs like the floor could vanish any second. She didn't look back, only heard muffled yelling, confused orders, and another shot echoing behind her. She burst out onto the street, gasping, heart in her throat. And there, leaning against an old car, head down, Alejandro. Blood dried on his shirt, breath ragged like every inhale hurt. He lifted his gaze slowly, eyes locking onto hers. And before Laura could say a word, Alejandro opened his mouth and said her name. But it wasn't Laura. It was another name. A name she hadn't heard in years. A name only family knew. For one long second, the whole world stopped. Laura froze. That name. God, she hadn't heard it in years. It hit her like a slap. Her stomach turned, knees almost giving out. For a second, she forgot the sirens, the blood, the people chasing them. Alejandro froze too, like he regretted it the second it slipped out. His lips parted, eyes wide, breath stuck in his throat. Laura stepped back. "Why did you call me that?" Her voice came out thin, barely more than air. Alejandro took a shaky step closer but kept his hands up like she was a scared animal he didn't want to spook. I knew you before. Years ago, before Madrid, before any of this." Her heart skipped. "What?" "You were at that summer camp. Small town outside Granada. You had that red bike. And that stupid collection of bandanas." Her breath caught. The floor beneath her felt like it shifted. "Stop. You're making that up." Alejandro shook his head, voice cracking. "You were 12. I was 15. You broke your arm trying to race down that hill behind the cabins." The memory hit her like a wave. The dirt, the blood. The boy with messy dark hair who carried her all the way back to the infirmary. The boy she hadn't thought about in years. Her throat closed. "That was you." Alejandro gave a crooked, half-broken smile. "Yeah, that was me." For a second, the air shifted. The tension cracked just enough for her heart to ache in a different way. Less fear, more confusion. and something she wasn't ready to name. But reality snapped back fast. Two black cars turned the corner, tires screeching, men shouting. People on the sidewalk started to scream and scatter. Alejandro grabbed her wrist. "We have to go, now." "I can't," she whispered, shaking her head, torn between running and freezing. "Laura, please." His eyes locked on hers, desperate, raw. "Just this once. Trust me." The sound of a gun cocking behind her made the choice for her. Laura spun around, saw one of Victor's guys aiming toward them. Without thinking, she grabbed Alejandro's hand and ran. They darted through side streets, down alleyways, jumping over trash bags and knocking over crates. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed, but she didn't stop. Not until Alejandro yanked her into the back entrance of an old bakery. The smell of yeast and sugar hit her like a slap. They collapsed behind a stack of flour bags, both gasping, covered in sweat and dust. Alejandro pressed a trembling hand to her cheek, brushing dirt from her skin. The touch was soft, careful, full of things unsaid. "Why didn't you tell me before?" she asked, voice shaking. He looked down. "Because I thought, if you knew who I really was, you'd leave before we even started." Her chest tightened. A tear slipped before she could stop it. "You idiot," she whispered, giving him a weak, bitter smile. Before he could answer, Laura's phone buzzed. One new message. From a number she didn't recognize. 4 words. "They found your mother." Her whole body went cold. Laura froze with the phone still in her hand. The words, "They found your mother," burned on the screen like they were on fire. For a second, she forgot the smell of flour, the dust on the floor, the heat of Alejandro's breath so close. She slowly lifted her eyes, scared of what she might find. Alejandro had already seen the message over her shoulder. The way his face tightened said it all. He knew exactly what this meant. "This is real, isn't it?" she whispered, her voice barely holding. He just nodded, swallowing hard. Ran a shaky hand through his hair, like he was holding panic in his chest. "Very." Laura felt the ground vanish beneath her feet. Her mom, of all people, the woman who had nothing to do with any of this, who stayed home watering her plants, calling her every Sunday morning asking if she was eating right. "I need to get to her," Laura said, jumping up like her body moved on instinct, heart pounding like crazy. Alejandro grabbed her arm, firm. "Not alone. You don't get it. It's my mom. And you don't get it. If they went after her, it's because they want to pull you in too, or me, or both of us." They stood there, both breathing hard, staring at each other like they had 2 seconds to choose between life or death. Outside, more sirens. A car speeding so fast the tires screeched on the asphalt. Alejandro let go of her arm, but slowly, like part of him still wanted to hold on. "We're going to her. Together. But first, you need to know something." Laura blinked, confused. "What?" He stepped closer. Close enough she could smell the mix of sweat, dust, and dried blood on his shirt. "The last time I saw your mom, it wasn't as a customer buying flowers. It was at a meeting, in the Rivera Foundation building." Her heart stopped. "My mom? At your foundation? Doing what?" Alejandro hesitated for half a second, but it was too late to back out now. "She worked with me, for years, in the confidential archives division." Laura felt like her stomach flipped inside out. Her knees almost buckled. "You're telling me my mom was part of this all along?" Alejandro stepped back, rubbing the back of his neck, nervous. "I was going to tell you, I swear. But after everything with your brother, with you, I didn't know how." Laura laughed, short, broken, almost breathless. "Everyone lied to me. It was never to hurt you. Not for a second." She took a deep breath, wiped her face with both hands, fighting back tears. "If I get in that car with you right now, if I go after her, promise me one thing." Alejandro nodded, locking eyes with her. "Anything." She stared at him, equal parts angry, scared, and something else she didn't want to name just yet. "That this time, you'll tell me everything. No filters, no half-truths, not a single lie." He swallowed hard. I promise. For a second, they just stood there, the noise of the street fading away. His eyes stuck on hers, the way his hand brushed hers, soft, like an apology without words. And just when Laura thought, maybe, just maybe, this could be the start of something real, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a video, no sender. She hit play and froze. The image was clear, too clear. Her mother, tied to a chair, someone standing in the back, wearing a black hood, holding a gun. Laura dropped the phone. Alejandro crouched fast to grab it, their eyes locked again. And before either of them could say a word, the screen went black. One sentence appeared in white letters. You have 2 hours. Laura ran down the building stairs like the floor might collapse at any second. Alejandro was right behind her, breathless, the phone still shaking in his hands after watching the video. They jumped into the car without thinking. Alejandro slammed the door shut, turned the key, and sped off like their lives depended on it. And honestly, they did. Neither of them spoke on the way. The only sounds were the engine roaring and distant sirens. Laura kept her eyes glued to her phone screen, replaying the video of her mom over and over, looking for any detail, any clue. A window in the background, the sound of dripping water, a faded sign on the wall with something written in red. It's the warehouse near the river, Alejandro suddenly said, gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. Laura's heart jumped. How do you know? Because that's where they took me the first time they threatened my team. I'd recognize that wall anywhere. She didn't argue. There wasn't time for doubt anymore. The car screeched around the curve near Avenida del Puerto. Alejandro turned off the headlights to avoid drawing attention. 2 blocks from the warehouse, he killed the engine. We go on foot from here, he said, locking eyes with her. If something happens, you run. Don't look back. Laura grabbed his hand before he could get out. If you die, I'll kill you later. He gave a tired, crooked smile. Small, but real. They moved in silence. The sound of their own breathing was deafening. As they got closer, Alejandro pulled her behind a stack of rusted crates. 2 armed men stood guarding a side entrance. I'll circle around, make some noise, get their attention. You go through the back, Alejandro whispered. Laura wanted to say no, but there was no time. She just nodded. Alejandro ran off, yelling and throwing a rock at the windows. The guards turned immediately, chasing after the noise. Laura didn't hesitate. She darted to the back, found a half-open door, and slipped inside. The smell hit her first, mold, oil, and dust thick in the air. At the far end of the room, there she was, her mother, tied up, pale, terrified. Laura ran to her, her fingers trembling as she worked on the ropes. Hang on, Mom. I've got you. But before she could finish, a metallic click echoed behind her. She froze. It's over, Laura, said a voice she knew too well. She turned slowly. Her brother, gun in hand, face pale, eyes hollow. Please, just listen, he started. But before he could finish, a single gunshot rang out. He dropped to his knees. Behind him, Alejandro, gun still smoking, hands shaking. Laura screamed. No! Alejandro dropped the gun like it burned him. He rushed to her brother, trying to stop the bleeding. I didn't want to... He was... Her brother, already fading, whispered just one word. Sorry. And that was it. Silence swallowed the room. Laura collapsed next to him, sobbing. Alejandro pulled her close. He didn't say a word, just held her, tight, long, like it was the only thing left to do. When the police finally arrived, they were still there, on the floor, broken, exhausted, but together. No more lies, no more games. Just raw, ugly truth and the weight of everything they'd lost, and everything they still might have. And now, if you're still here, subscribe right now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments with your reactions and your wildest theories about this ending. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know how this story ended. Don't wait another second. Subscribe immediately. This is the moment. Show your support loud and clear.